since a strange woman has slept in my bed.
Asceticism. Number 2. So as mentioned last time, in Jewish thought there's a certain antipathy toward asceticism, and I just thought I'd weigh in on a thought about why that is, and it just is probably, maybe not necessarily something that is so innate to Judaism, but could be a result of the polemics between Christianity and Judaism over the years, and that would be mainly the Christian sort of typification of Judaism as being something primarily carnal, like even the usage of the term carnal Israel to refer to Judaism, whereas spiritual Israel referred to Christianity and Christian polemics. And so perhaps that sort of stereotype of the Jews being concerned mainly with things of the flesh, perhaps the Jewish people began to own that in a way. It's just a thought, and it may or may not be so. I'm sure there are some innate things to Judaism as it has evolved to become something more concrete and, as some people say, more of an orthopraxis than an orthodoxy, meaning something that focuses on right living rather than having the right dogma. In fact, there have been thinkers who have tried to portray Judaism as a religion without dogma. For example, Moses Mendelssohn, famous one there, but whether or not it's true, it's a pretty dubious claim to say there's a religion without any dogma, at least that Judaism would be such a religion. I was perhaps unfair before when I was talking about asceticism kind of as a dualism that rejects the physical in favor of the spiritual, and I think there are definitely some things we could say maybe about asceticism that are more positive in light of sort of our present age and our society. So one of those things would clearly be that as a society, one of the big sort of criticisms leveled against the way our culture seems to behave is that it's materialistic, that it's consumer-driven, and one of the beautiful things about sort of aesthetic ideals would be that they run against that grain. They sort of resist or rebel against the idea of sort of a materialistic idea. And I think there's a lot of truth to the saying where they say that your possessions, you don't just own them, but they own you. Also, we should bear in mind that we could also see asceticism on a sliding scale and realize that rather than it being something for monks and nuns and hermits, that we all do live by some disciplines, right? An athlete, for example, will go through the rigors of training and will deny themselves certain things and force their bodies to go through certain things, which by all means would qualify as a rigorous, austere lifestyle, much like a hermit or a monk or whatever. And we also live by those rules. I mean, whether or not we are religious or secular or whatever, generally we do tend to have some discipline in our lives. So, for example, perhaps you're a vegetarian and don't eat meat for ethical reasons, for the sake of animals and not causing suffering, which is definitely something that would fall along those lines. Or maybe as consumers we try to be responsible and not purchase from unethical corporations and make an effort to do the fair trade thing and whatnot. Those things would fall somewhere on the line of asceticism as well. And I think it's important to just be conscious of that and to make the decision consciously of what our disciplines are and to live our life in view of that. So, for example, rather than just kind of having some vague notion that we really ought to control ourselves and therefore not indulge in potato chips or something like that, to really realize that there's a reason that there are things that we should discipline ourselves with and do them more consciously, do them with intention. And that actually brings us back kind of to the original point there about Judaism, how it is often shown as being orthopraxis versus orthodoxy, and in a way that's a real orthopraxis, right? To live right and to focus on having an ethical life, and actually that is a part of asceticism. Of course, there are other parts. For example, there is an element of asceticism which has to do with kind of atoning for your sins, suffering because you're a sinner, and in a way, your suffering then takes away your sin, which is maybe more of a, I know it's a Hindu idea and things like that, and that's something I haven't really thought a lot about, but it's definitely, it can be an element, that sort of medieval idea of self-flagellation. Also, there's the weariness that comes from being in the world, a desire to get away from the rat race that would drive us perhaps to do a retreat or to focus inward, to try to quiet our souls or to meditate. And that's also a really compelling factor. And it might kind of seem like idealism or kind of naive, this idea that an agrarian place or wild spaces will calm us down and give us a reprieve from sort of the stress of modern life. But it's true, I've found anyway, that after a couple days out of the city, you do start to have a rhythm that's much more natural and much more peaceful. And if anything, that's probably the most compelling factor for me that would draw me to to do a retreat or something like that, is just to be able to think clearly and be alone, and that's sort of maybe asceticism to me, is finding some kind of harmony by rejecting the madness and the rat race, and turning inward or turning upward, or whichever way you want to turn. But it's true, and there is peace in sort of rejecting, at least temporarily, the sort of madness that the world pushes on you. But that's probably enough for now. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.